Hello, this is Greg Smalley on Pod 366, a Weird Movies podcast, joined as I often am by Giles Edwards,
Hey,
who says hey. And we got a lot to get into this week. A lot of news, sort of a theme to our first several items. We're just going to go through, of course, the news and new releases and rumors from this upcoming week in weird movies. And allow me to bring up our first item, which is
hey.
sort of, I guess this quantifies as a rumor. Giles, I don't think any real long description is warranted for what we're looking at, but if you want, you can just tell people what we're looking at if they're case.
We're looking at an affable Midwesterner in his late 70s. This is a snapshot of David Lynch.
I was right. I was like, when you started with the affable Midwesterner, I was like, can you be more specific? But you got right. You did get right to it. And why are we looking at a picture of David Lynch? Do you know why we're looking at a picture of David?
Well, I understand that David Lynch is still hoping to make animated movie Snoot World,
That's
is why we're talking about this fella today.
that's correct. So this news broke last week. David Lynch came out and I guess leaked it or let it be known that he had pitched a animated movie to Netflix and they turned him down, which
Oh,
I think shocked a lot of people. I don't think it should have shocked people, but it did shock a lot of people. Um, the story was called Snoot World, and it's co-written by a Tim Burton collaborator who worked, writer who Carolyn Thompson worked on Nightmare Before Christmas, Edward Scissorhands, and had worked on the Addams Family movie. So she's pretty distinguished writer, and not super weird, but
darkly quirky though, and
yeah,
that's
well,
certainly a friend of ours.
she describes her own uh, script, which I guess she co-wrote with Lynch, as wackadoo. It takes my breath away how wacky it is. The
You
Snoop,
know, the kids aren't using the word wackadoo nearly enough these days, but I suppose you want to save it for special occasions.
right? As she goes on to say, the snoots are these tiny creatures who have a ritual transition at age 8, which time they get tinier and they're sent away for a year so they are protected. The world goes into chaos when the snoot hero of the story disappears into the carpet and his family can't find him and he enters a crazy, magnificent world. So it does sound like something aimed at kids. I know Lynch had talked about doing animation before, and he started as a painter, so it seems natural for him to do
Hmm.
animation, but he's never done one, at least not a, I guess he's put some small amounts of stop motion style animation into features before, but never done like a traditional 2D animation. So that would be very exciting. But Netflix said, nah, we're good. Any more
Uh,
thoughts, Giles, though?
oh no, just disappointed in Netflix. I mean, there are many bigger fans of David Lynch out there than I am, but I'm a booster, and he's the kind of guys like this. This is an American icon, and you shouldn't go around saying no to directors like that. But oh well, I guess I just hope it'll get made and be available somehow soon.
And I suspect it would get made, just because Netflix turned them down doesn't mean
There are, yeah, other places.
somebody else isn't interested. Uh, but it is, yeah, it shows you where we're at, I guess. Um, but speaking of directors that can't get a project made, uh, here we have another. We quickly describe this one. We've discussed this before, so we'll discuss it again.
Yes, young smiling woman on the left with probably a red dress that matches her red lipstick nicely, and an older smiling gentleman on the right in a pink suit covered with flamingos. So I imagine you can guess the person on the right, and of course the person on the left. I will have to. Is that Aubrey Plaza?
That's her name, yeah.
All right, that's Aubrey Plaza on the left and John Waters on the right.
Wow. And so several weeks ago, uh, there was a rumor that Aubrey Plaza was going to star in John Waters' adaptation of his own novel, Liar Mouth. And so we were prepared to talk about that. And then I believe like the same day we were going on air, John Waters came out and said, "Nah, it's not true. I appreciate the interest, and we are interested in making Liar Mouth, but no, Aubrey Plaza is not attached to it, and we don't have any uh, funding for it." And so just this week,
Oh, well, it looks like from this article, if you
sure, go
pardon me
ahead.
for yeah, it looks like that Aubrey Plaza may well be attached to it. They just don't have any money for it. So,
That's correct. So we have to retract our retraction that Aubrey Plaza is not attached to it. Aubrey Plaza is attached to it, but we don't have to retract our observation and secondhand reporting that there is no money to make it. What's interesting about it is, I guess, there's some interest in making it for sure, because it within the article, which is actually kind of, there's like a paragraph about this story buried in this story about the John Waters screening of two of his very rare early shorts, which were Hag in a Black Leather Jacket and Roman Candles somewhere in LA. And in the middle of that story, there's this nugget that he mentioned in the Q&A about Liar Mouth getting made. But he does mention that the screenplay was optioned, which means that he was paid by someone to adapt his own novel into a screenplay. So a screenplay exists, and somebody paid him for that. So, I mean, that's enough. That shows that there is interest. They just can't find somebody to upfront the however much, million or 2 million or 3 million or 10 million they need to make the movie.
yeah.
I assume Aubrey Plaza would work for scale, because I don't know why she would suddenly. I think she just wants to work with David Waters. David Waters? John Waters. It seems like a perfect match to me, because her persona really fits a John Waters anti-heroine. I think she'd be great in the role. I think last time we talked about it, I said Aubrey Plaza would be the biggest actor ever to have been in a John Waters movie, which, of course, thinking about it, was absolutely untrue, because Johnny Depp was in a John Waters movie. So,
And I guess Stephen Dorff had a place in the sun at one point, even if it's kind of disappeared shortly after Blade. But yeah, Cecil B. Demented and had a
I
cast worth mentioning. Melanie Griffith, yeah, yeah. So
he has some past their prime. Yeah,
yeah,
because oh, who was it that was in Serial Mom? The star of Serial Mom was
okay, yeah, yeah,
Kathleen Turner. She was a
yeah,
big star. Yeah, so I missed a lot of stars, but he gets a lot of stars on the way down. So I hope Aubrey Plaza. That doesn't mean Aubrey Plaza is on the way down.
well, let's hope not. Yes.
She's not. But okay. Anyway, so I think that one will get made. Um, but let's go on to our next director. This guy's perhaps less recognizable. Giles, do you recognize him, or?
This looks like an older Italian American gentleman with a haircut and beard that suggests he's very, very passionate about something, even if it's not,
Shaving or person.
shaving. And I don't blame him. I respect artists and whatever direction they take with their presentation. This, of course, is the much famous but now kind of slightly down on his luck Francis Ford Coppola.
Well, is he down on his luck? I suppose. I
Well,
suppose.
he did get to make his dream movie, but now there's this snag which you're about to
Right. So
regretfully inform us.
he has actually completed his movie Megalopolis, which we have discussed at times, and we really still don't know much about it except that it's kind of a dystopian fantasy set in sort of an alternate history future with a lot of references to the Roman Empire and perhaps satirically comparing our own age to the fall of the Roman Empire. And that everybody who's seen it thinks it's very, very weird. As a matter of fact, it's so weird, apparently, that he can't find a distributor to take it on. Um,
Yeah, because he envisioned a $100 million kind of press ad campaign for it that hasn't had any takers yet.
right. So it's debuting at Cannes, where it will, doubtlessly make a stir one way or the other, or whether people love it or whether people hate it. Um, but yeah, he's not finding anybody who's willing to give it the kind of release that a Francis Ford Coppola movie from, the 70s or 80s would have gotten. Um, People are talking about, well, it would maybe fit with a smaller distributor like A24 or Neon, who's still pretty big, but they don't have the kind of budget that Coppola is looking for promotion, and Coppola probably won't get. I mean, I don't think Universal or Paramount's going to spring for this. If it's not, especially if it's not a surefire like Oscar contender, which it seems to be probably too weird to be a real awards contender. But we shall see. Considering that the movie's already made and he's already, sunk all his money into it, he'll end up relenting and letting someone distribute it, I'm sure. What do you
Yeah.
think, Charles?
Oh, yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, it does have Shia LaBeouf and Adam Driver in it, and those two are still pretty big draws. I read the Hollywood Reporter article where their little journalist person went and spoke with a bunch of the people who are at a elite screening, and I was really taken aback by this quote from them. Various reactions to the screening. Two people say it's hard to figure out who is the good guy and who is the bad guy. And it just bugs me that this is at all a problem. But that gripe aside, it does seem like there's something interesting happening in this movie, and it definitely sounds big, as the title would demand. So I'm hoping it gets as wide a distribution as possible.
Sure, but he's going to have to lower his sights
Oh, yeah.
for sure. I think he's uh, maybe a few delusions of grandeur. Francis Ford Coppola, of course, very famous director, Apocalypse Now, and what was the other one?
The other, yes.
Something like The Godfather.
I something to do with criminals somehow, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, but he has not had a hit in many, many a year. He's
Mm.
continued to make movies, and they haven't had a hit. So he sold most of his vineyards to finance his big final magnum opus, and so he will get it out. But we will probably have to wait to see that.
God willing, one day maybe I'll be able to solve some of my problems by selling most of my vineyards, but I won't hold my breath for that.
So this guy's almost as big as Francis Ford Coppola. Uh, Not
Shorter
really.
beard, though.
Shorter beard. I'm not sure if that's our director. there. I didn't want to get into doing this too often, but I was hit up for this one, and there are several reasons that I think it may be of interest to people. It is a Indiegogo little project that's seeking funding. Giles, do you want to describe that image, perhaps?
Yeah, I'll give it a
Right.
go. We'll start with the right. We see the back of a woman wearing a black, either satin shirt, possibly a thin leather jacket, frizzled, dyed blonde hair. We don't see her face. She is seated in front of a mid-game chessboard, and possibly her opponent, but certainly on the other side of this chessboard, through a portal in the wall, which looks like it can be obscured by a velvet curtain, is a somewhat dismayed looking gentleman in possibly a white lab coat. And in the distance, you can see maybe some technology related stuff. And this guy looking through the portal by the chessboard is kind of looking straight at the camera, at us, with a face that seems to be rather dismayed at whatever we're up to.
Okay, so now if you wonder if this project might be weird, and that description of that still didn't tell you, let me explain, let me give you the title. Segments of Jonah, Journal of the Homunculus. Now, I think that title has to suggest to you that this is indeed a weird movie. The log line is through a surreal landscape, monstrous creatures guard secrets of the past from a tormented doctor. I've seen parts of it. It has those little chess pieces turn into little grotesque monsters, and there's a like a stone faced monster with a bowl haircut in it, and it is indeed surreal. And one of my favorite things about this project, which, as I said, is seeking funding, and we'll have a link to the Indiegogo, is that it stars or has within it at least two uh, Scream Queen actresses who I'm both fans of. First, Lynn Lowry, who, of course, we have done a very extensive interview with that you can find on our channel. I'll probably link that as well. And I met Lynn Lowry on set and worked with her on a movie that I think still has yet to come out. Very low budget movie, but she's in it, and also Debbie Rochon, um, probably best known to us from her small role in Tromeo and Juliet, but she's been in a ton of Troma movies, and she was in Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains, and a lot of other low budget movies. And she's actually a fine writer. I've read some of her film writing. It's much more substantial than you would expect from a scream queen. So she's pretty cool. Debbie and Lynn both in it. I think that's appealing to me, and a reason to perhaps support this project so that those two fine actresses can get some money, because it's not easy. You think just because you've heard their names that they're doing fine, but they're still working actresses. They still need jobs. They still have bills to pay.
Yeah, Debbie Rochon has 263 actress credits, which suggests to me none of those have been incredibly lucrative.
Well, like when we're saying we know her from
Yeah,
Tromeo
oh
and
no, yeah.
Juliet, but
Looking at the titles, I can see that she obviously must love what she's doing, but must continue to do this.
yes, yes, you can certainly make a living by doing a lot of low budget features, which is what both these ladies are doing. They love to work, but it's not like, you get the big payday and you're living the Hollywood lifestyle.
And then the next thing you know, you're in a John Waters movie as your career is on the way down.
Yeah, I think either of them would love to be in a John
Oh, I'm sure.
movie, and I'd love to see either of those in a John Waters movie. But so that is Segments of Jonah, Journal of the Homunculus. Check it out on Indiegogo. We'll have a link for that. And like I said, not quite as big as Lynch, Waters, and Coppola, but still looking for money. And the good news is he needs less money than they do. All right. Now, finally turning to films that have actually been made, although Megalopolis has been made. This is coming out this week. And I was went back and forth. At first, I thought it was a good one to talk about. Then I read a little bit about it and thought, well, maybe it's not. Then I came back around to it because I think the Atlantic called it the strangest movie of the year. But Giles, do you want to describe the poster for people who are listening?
Sure thing. This is stylized photograph with shall we say a artist rendered background to the image. There's a group of four figures, looks like three adults size, one perhaps younger, looking at this drawn bright orange sunset, which is below this slightly less orange, perhaps dark yellow sky, and then below the sun fading into all those Roy G. Biv colors that we love in our spectra. And this is over a cliff edge, and it's flanked by two mighty pine trees. And it has very much a kind of, 60s, 70s eco vibe to it, which is appropriate for the subject matter, as these four entities look neither human nor quite animal.
But they have large feet
They
because
do have large feet.
because
Big.
they are big feet, or Sasquatches, and the movie is called Sasquatch Sunset. And there's some chance you may have seen this in its advertising campaign. Giles, did you see the trailer or read anything about it?
I did see the trailer, and looking at this handily provided by IMDb plot description, I think this explains exactly what's going on here. A year in the life of a unique family. It captures the daily life of the Sasquatch with a level of detail and rigor that is simply unforgettable. So it seemed to me that something of a gag premise being pursued to its most serious conclusion.
Yeah, I like those kind of movies that take an absurd premise and play it out straight. Although I think it's more of a comedy and from
Hmm.
what I've read at many times, a gross out comedy indeed, with lots of vomit and urine and ejaculating and so forth. Um,
Uh-huh.
with some actors that are always constantly naked except for their ape Sasquatch makeup, including Jesse Eisenberg and Riley Keough. Keough. How do you pronounce her name?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I'm saying Keough.
Q.
Well, they are the
Uh,
two. They are Mama and Papa Sasquatch, I'm guessing. And,
uh,
apparently, no one else. It's from the Zellner brothers, who maybe they're on the poster. They're saying Kumiko the Treasure Hunter is their big hit, I guess, that they're known for. I'm not so sure about that. I think people nowadays, a lot of people will know them for their TV series, The Curse, uh, which is we haven't seen yet because it's on a pay channel I don't get. I think it's Paramount Plus, hoping that will eventually come to somewhere where I can see it conveniently without buying another channel. But that's supposed to be very weird. Also, encouragingly, the executive producer is Ari Aster, who has been known from time to time to dabble in some weird projects.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of weird talent around it. I did see a clip of a Sasquatches eating some psychedelic mushrooms and having a trip. So there's that.
Yeah. The trailer sort of looked like it would be a bit gross out, bit comedy, but also a bit heartwarming. I'll be interested to see what others may think of it, but I won't be um, chomping at the bit to watch this myself.
I'll be very curious about it. I don't know if I will get to see it. Probably well before the end of the year in select theaters starting this week, and then nationwide, or at least wider distribution, starting next week. So here's another one that's in theaters,
Oh,
probably not near you. Um, Giles, why not go ahead and describe what you see on the
sure thing. All right, we've got a lime green hyper colored version of a jungle backdrop. You can just barely make out the leaves and branches and things, but it's all done in this almost neon lime thing going on. The title is in this cool sort of opium fueled wavy purple at the bottom, and standing as the primary figure is what looks like a domestic servant of oh, let's see. I don't want to misguess the. Okay. I'll give something away here. An Indonesian woman of, in her 30s or 40s, looking down on a tray. And on this tray that she is bearing are three people, all dressed very nicely and looking not only out of place being miniature on a tray, but looking out of place being in a jungle in the first place.
All right, and the title.
Title is Sweet Dreams.
Yes, it's Sweet Dreams, a movie starring Johnny Knoxville about a softball team. Oh no,
And
wait.
they make it in the end.
And they
Oops,
make it
spoiler.
in the end. Oh no, wait. That's the other movie called Sweet Dreams that is debuting this week. This Sweet Dreams is a surrealistic satire of colonialism set in Indonesia. Um, so what horrible timing to release, or maybe it's just horrible naming to release a movie that's going to be confused with a much worse but much better distributed movie, and they come out in exactly the same week. Two movies named Sweet Dreams. But that's the way, I guess that's the way it happens sometimes.
Yeah, and I imagine in the home countries of production, which includes Netherlands, Indonesia, and Sweden, this Sweet Dreams will get a lot more attention than the other one, which will distract us here, unfortunately.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the Johnny Knoxville one gets
Oh,
better notice than either.
oh, Sweden, Indonesia,
Sweden, yeah,
Netherlands. Come on, don't let me
they
down.
love their jackass in Sweden and Indonesia too. Um,
Well,
so
I'm
yeah,
looking forward to this one anyway. This looks fascinating. It's twilight of European colonialism and always a lot of great. That's a great scenario to say a lot of things and have them be immediately pertinent and not at all preachy.
did you check out the trailer?
I did. It looked dark. It looked like it had moments of melodrama, but it also looked like it had some very sharp and occasionally strange things going on as well. So I'm intrigued to the point of regretting that I have mislaid the screener email I got for that.
Um, I've got it somewhere. I believe my guess is it's going to be one of those movies that's pretty straightforward for about two-thirds and then goes nuts in the last third. Common structure for a surreal movie. Uh, you want to build to the weirdness. Um, Trailer doesn't reveal much, stills don't reveal much, looks just like a regular period piece. There is a pregnant woman, there's some Indonesian women who may be being
Okay.
exploited, we should
Yeah.
say. Maybe. both their labor and their sexuality being exploited. There is a tiger in the trailer. I do know that. Some blood and some odd editing. Anything else?
It's in a 1.33 to 1 ratio, and I don't know if that's common to any of the countries of origin, but it's certainly not here. And odd ratios are also, for me at least, suggestive of promise, because those are choices very specifically made by the director. And so, what kind of cramped, claustrophobic thing they're after, well, I can be all about that.
And by the way, the director's name, I don't think it's her second movie. I'm not sure we should even try to pronounce her name. Do you want to give it a
I'll
chance?
give it a chance. It'd be Ena Sendejarovic.
Sindejarovic,
Possibly
Vich.
Sindejarovic. I don't know with the little accent over the C, but I feel comfortable I'm four-fifths there at least. So
Okay. I'm not sure that's a Swedish name either. She might be,
it could be.
looks like a Slavic name.
Oh,
So
we got some
maybe
options.
it's Swedish. Um,
Oh, magical internet, speak to me.
Anyway, so that's Sweet Dreams, which you probably will not be able to see because it's going to be a very limited distribution. And if you go to see Sweet Dreams, you're probably going to see Johnny Knoxville playing softball instead, which I would recommend to avoid without having seen it. Um,
She is Bosnian Dutch, so I'm guessing the last name is the
yeah,
Bosnian one's
yeah.
father.
So let's see if we can get in one more before we run out of time and have to reload for a second session.
Mm-hmm.
This is another movie that's in theater. So it's an unusual week with three movies in theaters that I noticed, chose to highlight. This one from Belgium, Netherlands, and Democratic Republic of Congo. Giles, describe the poster, if you will.
All right. Hazy, smoky purple dominating almost the entire thing, other than the blurbs, the credits, the title. But centered in the middle, emerging from this fog, is the face of a young black gentleman in repose. His eyes are probably closed, but we couldn't swear on it because each of them are obscured by what looks like one orange flower petal laid atop them, with centered thereon two black circles mimicking some rather unsettling looking, quote, open eyes.
Okay. Name of it?
Omen.
Omen, yeah. So it's uh, we can tell, oh crap. We can tell from the trailer that the main plot is it's about an immigrant to Belgium who is going to be married to um, a Belgian woman, and he takes her to his family in the Congo to meet them. And there he is mistaken for a sorcerer and sort of uh, abused or tormented by his own family. And then some things get strange. Giles, see the trailer and have any
I
thoughts?
did. I did. And yeah, that's a pretty accurate description from at least what can be readily gleaned from the trailer. And a lot of really great imagery from, I'm going to guess, deep Congo area traditions. I didn't quite catch, obviously, there are any number of tribes there, but on display was something not usually seen by, I don't know, people catching the Johnny Knoxville Sweet Dreams kinds of movies. So there was a lot of really cool stuff going on, and yes, a bit of mystery about whether or not how supernatural the doings may be, which is always a fun ambiguity to play with.
Yes, and I thought it was going to be sort of a regular horror movie, but some of the critics suggested that there may be more strangeness to it. I'm just going to read a couple of quotes. Omen is a psychedelic, vivid delight from Shubhra Gupta from the India Express. Avi Offer, NYC Movie Bureau, says it's a mesmerizing, elliptical, and poignant slice of psychological horror and surrealism. And then I think there's one more I was going to read. Frank J. Avella from Awards Daily says Balogi, who is the director, takes his own Belgian Congolese heritage and channels it into a truly beguiling, edgy, and haunting cinematic work that blends magical realism with domestic drama and horror. So those sounded good enough to me to say it's probably stranger than the trailer makes it look. The trailer is probably being a little coy, I'm hoping.
And certainly worth maybe at least mentioning briefly. It won the special New Voice Prize in the Certain Regard at the Cannes Film Festival. So
Yes, from last.
good. I'm going to say almost certainly, if not, wholly weird.
Right. So yeah, that one would be worth checking out if it comes to a theater near you, which again, it probably won't, but hey, what are we gonna do? It'll probably be on VOD soon as well. Sweet Dreams and Sasquatch Sunset, the easiest one to catch. We have three more items to go over, but we're going to take a brief break and come back. Of course, no time will pass for you while we will have a chance to visit the facilities. Giles, see you in just a few minutes.
See you, Greg.
And we are back, although I guess you never noticed we were gone. So we have three more items to discuss, as I had mentioned. And let's see if I can get the first of those up.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'm going to quickly dive in. I did some research while we were gone about Riley Keough, which is how you pronounce the last name there. It's shortening from a longer Gaelic name, anglicized, of course, as the English were wont to do. So simply Riley Keough.
Keough, okay. And I guess Barry Keough is pronounced the same way.
Probably.
Go back and do research.
Yes, sir.
So Riley Keough, of course, known to us from her performance in
oh, yes, Under the Silver Lake.
Under the Silver Lake. Yeah, I thought you would remember that one.
It's been too long since I've seen that, but yeah, I should revisit it.
Okay. Oh, so here is the one we're actually talking about. The item we're actually talking about. Giles, would you enjoy describing the image briefly?
Sure, it's black and white. It's hazy. It's a bit dirty. It's a bit heck, even more than hazy. I'd say there's a lot of fog going on. Certainly in the top half of the image there, we see two figures. One of them not quite upright, hands and knees kind of thing, looking off to the right. Kind of military fatigues thing going, and then in the foreground, in a sort of Christ pose, horizontal splayed position, is possibly the same person, also in military fatigue kind of look, either very soundly asleep or possibly even dead. Hard to say. Some ambiguity, as I expect, is something you can find a lot of in this rejigged version of Kubrick's first motion picture.
Fear and Desire.
Fear and
Yeah, and the guy who's lying in the foreground is on a raft.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, yeah.
I'd add
Yeah.
it.
See the last logs there in the left-hand corner.
And it's floating on a lake or river or something. Yeah, so it's speaking of undistributable, I guess Kubrick sort of can join Lynch, Waters, and Coppola to some extent because his first movie was Well, not quite undistributable. I suppose, as I understand, what happened is that he made the movie he wanted to make, and in 1952, and debuted it at the Venice Film Festival in 1953, and the response was not great. And so he cut a bunch of scenes out of it and then recut it and then re-released it. And it was the kind of movie that people said, some critics said, wow, this is really promising. And the public generally ignored. And he kind of then let it just slip into public domain and even, I think, disowned it to some extent later in life. He certainly never brought it back. But this is his original vision for the film, which supposedly is more dreamlike and existential than the version that got released. We don't have a trailer. There is a trailer for it. I haven't seen it. Did you see the trailer, Giles?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
It's
tell
a
us.
brief, yeah, it's a brief trailer as appropriate for a brief film. Definitely looks kind of, yes, existential. Group of soldiers in the woods, kind of trying to survive and ultimately escape. And seems they are at the end presented with an odd ethical challenge, identity related challenge, ambiguous, yes, as you know some people enjoy and many don't. Definitely felt of its era, at least from the trailer. It was made in 1952, and so there's a sort of authoritative narration starts the explanation of the advertising material for this film, focusing, shall we say, with a pacifistic view of war and conflict and all that. So I can see this easily being one of those movies that's probably good, certainly quite promising, but not like, oh man, wasn't that awesome? Kind of experience that is demanded of, shall we say, the more commercial element of the filmmaking industry.
Okay. So a couple of, I guess, trivia points. The amount of material that was cut was 9 minutes. So it's 9 minutes of movie that have been restored to this version. This version was discovered by the Library of Congress, and I'm not sure of the date. I I think this is just Kino is throwing it up on VOD on their own channel. I'm not sure it can be got anywhere else. Um, we may look into that, but the only link I have is for the Kino Now, so I think you have to see it there. And it is public domain. I'm not really sure, since that new stuff was rediscovered. I guess it means it was never copyrighted, so I don't think that they can put this out as a new copyrighted
Yeah.
version. So I think it's going to be copyright free, because it was never originally copyrighted.
Yeah. And
Um,
it's perhaps worth mentioning that 9 minutes means different things to different directors. In the case of this film, that 9 minutes is a bit over a tenth of the total runtime, so it is certainly more significant 9 minutes than some director adding to their 3 hour opus to make that 3 hour and 10 minute thing that they really wanted to do. So
And I think it is also in our reader suggestion queue. I will admit, I admit to it.
no good.
It's in our reader suggestion queue, but I don't think this was the version. I think they were talking about the original version. This version sounds like it must be stranger, so probably more worthy of coverage. I hope it will come out on physical media. I don't see
Yeah.
why next time Kino decides to re-release Fear and Desire, they wouldn't throw this cut on together with the other cut.
Yeah, I mean they've done the 4K processing treatment and it's Kubrick, so it's not as if there isn't a market for that on physical media somehow.
Right, and they don't have to pay for the rights, I don't think so.
Right? Yeah. Right.
Um, Notes on the cast: it has Paul Mazursky in it. I think is the male lead, who of course went on to be a director and screenwriter in his own right. A little more interesting to me, just from a kind of trivia comedy perspective, is that the female lead is Virginia Leith. And do you know where we know Virginia Leith from, Giles?
N Not off the top of my head.
She
Where are we?
was she played the disembodied head in The Brain That Wouldn't Die, um, in about 1962. So in 10 years, she went from working with Kubrick, who was an unknown, of course, making his first movie, a complete unknown, to being a disembodied head. So, that's a pretty cool little, just those two movies, pretty cool resume, I have to say, for Virginia Leith.
It's yeah, no, it's a lot, well, certainly a lot. And man, yeah, the images you get from the brain that wouldn't die. There's some great movie stills from a fine motion picture.
Yeah. So that's Fear and Desire. And then the next movie is one that was totally unknown to me until it popped up in a listing of newly released Blu-rays. The reason it's probably totally unknown is because it was one of those films discovered by Mondo Macabro, who travel the world to find neglected and very strange B movies from places like Indonesia in this case. Um, this is Indonesia. Yes, it's Indonesia.
Yep.
And they call it a cult film. I mean, who knows whether it's a cult film in Indonesia? It's one of a bunch of B movies they made in Indonesia. Maybe in Indonesia it is viewed as a cult film. Story. Well, why don't you describe the still first, Patrick? Or Patrick?
Sure. All right. Well, it's a dingy room. There's a troubled looking Indonesian fellow with his hair tied back in a black bandana, stachioed, mouth wide open with a sort of blood-stained teeth, fresh blood, mind you. He's kind of crumpled on the floor with his hands slightly raised in a gesture matching the absolute pain and terror on his face. This pain and terror stemming no doubt from the bumpy red, cadmium red, viney spike things emerging from his torso.
Yeah, so apparently in this story, some kind of crazy doctor gets revenge on people by giving them these pills that when you
Well,
them, oh, go on.
oh yeah, well, from the plot description on Amazon, which I suspect is lifted straight from the packaging. It's a corrupt politician in rural Indonesia wants to impose himself as the boss of the local territory. To do this, he has to eliminate the competition. To do that, he uses his, quote, special silencers. Small red pills apparently intended to enhance meditative states, but when taken with food or drink, they erupt inside the victim's stomach and emerge through the flesh like ragged, blood-covered tree branches. So,
And the packaging continues. It literally has to be seen to be believed.
yeah, oh, yes.
I don't know if that made the IMDb
Oh
synopsis.
yeah, I just figured keep it so yeah, this is certainly I've seen variants of this image, but this specific form is new to my eyes.
Yeah, never heard of this movie before. There are really no special features on this DVD. There are two versions of the movie and they do have an episode on Indonesian cinema in general, I think, which would be interesting to people. There
Yeah.
are other Indonesian movies that probably are worth considering, Indonesian horror movies. Two quotes. that are promising. Not only is there plenty of action, amusing moments, and a genuinely bizarre plot, there's also a heaping helping of blood and gore, says the bloody pit of horror. And then the insanity levels are cranked up higher and higher as the movie goes on, but the ending has to be seen to be believed. I was left speechless, says mondoexploito.com.
And I kind of like the presumed knowledge on the third quote on the packaging. Special Silencers has pretty much everything you'd want from an Indonesian exploitation movie. And I just like that. Oh, okay. I didn't know I was going to have to come into this with hopes. But
Or our extensive knowledge of Indonesian exploitation movies. I believe they had a movie about, the, um, I think Pete may have covered it. I think it may be a Vertalock, the monster that is a flying head with the intestines attached
oh
to
gosh, that thing.
the head. Um,
Yeah, I vaguely
I
remember,
think
and
that
that
was an
certainly sounds like something Pete would have reviewed.
I think that was an Indonesian movie that's a little Indonesian exploitation movie that's a little more famous than this one, which may be great. But I mean, there were just a ton of movies made in the 60s through 80s and maybe even into the 90s that pretty much no one outside their home country ever saw and are sort of still an area that is being rediscovered and released. So it gives companies like Mondo Macabro something to do and gives people something they've probably never seen before. Something you might have seen before, and our last item today. This is simply a upgrade from the Criterion Collection of a movie that many people have probably seen. Giles, you want to describe the cover and maybe people will guess what it is?
Sure. Well, we are what really looks like the very late 19th or perhaps early 20th century. There's a beautiful rising cliff in the background, and in the foreground, there's a nice amber field. And populating this image, a quick count here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Somewhere between 8 and 10 young college age women in, shall we say, fancy going out kind of garb for, I don't know, maybe some déjeuner sur l'air of activities as they await a, well, who knows what they await, but they're just, looks like they're just killing time until something happens.
Which
But
indeed
they don't
happened
know.
throughout a lot of killing time in this movie. And we'll suggest that they might be in the Australian outback.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
not? Because it is naturally Picnic at Hanging Rock,
yeah.
Peter Weir's art house, enigmatic art house movie about a bunch of girls who simply disappear and no explanation is given. They disappear on a picnic at Hanging Rock. Giles, have you seen it?
I have not, but every time it comes up, I do like to mention that this is one of those rare and I think wonderful cases where the director's cut is actually shorter than the theatrical release. And kudos to Peter Weir for being full-throated about supporting his ambiguous vision as opposed to whatever was demanded by the distributors to tack on to perhaps make it have slightly more resolution or make a bit more sense. So
Good point.
this is,
Um,
yeah.
Let me see. So it is now I guess we'd call it an Apocrypha candidate still because it was a list candidate, did not make our list of the 366 weirdest movies of all time. I wrote on reviewing it, it's a subtle, indirect feature with a unique tone. The question is whether the diffuse symbolism and impudent refusal to explain its central event gets it from curious all the way to weird. I forgot that I called it impudent.
Oh, yeah, I don't think yeah, I don't see that word much, but I like
And
that. Yeah.
it's a very impudent movie. It's impudent in its refusal to explain. Uh, there's a lot of sexual repression in the movie, with a lot of focus on the women, young women wearing those binding corsets and
Mm.
things like that. Um, so that is, it has been out on Blu-ray for quite a while, now on 4K UHD, and that pretty much wraps it up for us for this week. Only thing I have to say is in 2 weeks, we will have a guest for sure. No one next week. 2 weeks, Eric Kirsten from Academic will be on to talk about some movies with us. And I did want to say the big book that we're producing of all 366 weird movies is indeed still coming along. It will be text locked for the second time.
Double locked, yes, padlock and bolt.
Double text locks, except for the ending or at the index, uh, by tomorrow.
Oh,
And I'll send it off to the publisher. But then there's one more thing to do, which is they have to paginate and put the images in, and then we have to do the table of contents and index. Other than that, it's all ready to go before the end of the year. So I hope that is good news that will finally exist in print.
I'm excited because I had the pleasure of doing a number of new reviews for that, which was really good for me to check out on a lot of canon stuff that I hadn't seen yet.
And we should point out that it is not just recycling. This book will not just be recycling the old reviews on the site. They are, a number of them are entirely new, done by different writers than did the original review. And others are greatly improved, shorter versions of the rambling original reviews.
Yes, I remember, yes, cutting Dark City down, my Dark City review by about half, I believe, to get it into fighting form for the print version.
So when that is out, we will probably try to spend a lot of time talking about that to try to convince people to purchase it.
And any professors in film departments out there who may be watching or listening, this is exactly the kind of thing you'll want on your curriculum. So keep your eyes open.
Yes. Okay. And so that'll do it for this week. We'll see you next week. No guest planned. Who knows? Maybe somebody could come in, but we will discuss the news and releases of the future at that date. So signing off. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye bye.